Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats, weekly podcast episode number 147. I'm your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan. If you can't do it, nobody can. Although there's been a lot of people that have attempted to duplicate my efforts. Most unsuccessful. A couple successful, but we won't talk about those today. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels around the world. Actually, not only is this the first podcast about wooden boats, I believe it's the only podcast 100% dedicated to wooden boats. Anyway, welcome to the podcast today, folks. Great to have you on board the good ship Hooked on Wooden Boats. We like to have fun on this podcast, interview people in the wooden boat world, and there's more people in the wooden boat world than you might suspect. In fact, there's probably some lurking in your neighborhood somewhere. I like to bike ride, and when I'm out bike riding, I'm always looking in garages and shops for boats. In fact, just this week or last week, I was riding my bicycle. I live kind of in the country, and I was doing this loop, and I came by this big shed, and it kind of had a protrusion at one end. And so I turned around on my bike and I went back and I just rolled partway into the driveway and I could see there was a boat inside of it. So I'm going to have to stop there and see what this guy's up to because it looked pretty sweet. I love uncovering stuff like that. That's really fun. Anyway, wooden boats rock. And if they didn't, you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast today. Today's featured segment is an interview I did with Lin and Larry Pardey during the Wooden Boat Festival this September. I had the privilege and opportunity to sit down with them. They were staying at the festival in a camper on their truck, really nice rig, so we went and did the interview inside their camper, so it was very intimate, really fun. I love Lin and Larry. They're great people, very kind to me to take the time to do this. And I got to ask a lot of fun questions. It was kind of a question and answer session. I had emailed Lin with some questions beforehand. Things like, how do you prepare for a circumnavigation? How do you select the right boat for cruising overseas? Sorry about that beep. What are the top lessons you've learned in your blue water cruising days? Lots of cool stuff, so stick around for that. I think you're going to enjoy it. I was up to my ears this weekend in cedar shavings. As I mentioned last week, I'm building some panels for my son's wedding, building 2 4x8 panels that are going to stand side by side. So there'll be a backdrop of about 8 feet that'll go behind my son's stage. It'll go behind the stage that they're going to stand on during the wedding ceremony. And so I've got this 100-year-old wood siding, cedar siding from a local house here in Stanwood. And the boards are anywhere from 12 to 12 and a half inches wide and anywhere from a half inch to about an inch thick. So what I did is I cut those boards, trimmed them down to anywhere from maybe 18 inches to 48 inches in length. And I mounted pieces vertically on these 4x8 panels. So there's 8 vertical panels wide of this material, this cedar. And what I did is I beveled the edges, all 4 edges of each piece of cedar before I attach it to the panel. Anyway, I just finished building the second panel this week, and it looks really cool. I'm very happy with the result. It kind of looks like an old barn. The wood's pretty well stained, most of it. There's kind of some rough spots and lots of knots and water stains and stuff. So it's really cool looking. So I've really had fun doing that this week. It's almost like working on a boat, and I'm pretty excited about it because I'm going to get those. James is getting married here in a couple of weeks, and we're going to get those up. And the other cool thing I'm going to try here is I'm going to experiment with some wood stains. And instead of going to the hardware store and spending money, I'm going to try some stains with coffee or tea, because I want to give the wood just a little bit more color, a little more depth. And so I've been doing a little bit of reading about making a stain basically out of a black tea, or you can also make it out of coffee. So I've got some tea brewing today. I'm going to try that on a few pieces of scrap wood, see what that looks like. I'll be pretty excited if it works because, it's wood stain is expensive. I mean, a quart probably costs you at least $6 to $10, and depending upon what you buy, it can cost a lot more than that. So I'm pretty excited to try that out. So that was my big woodworking project for this week. I've mentioned previously that I've started an Amazon business earlier this year. So I'm what you call an FBA seller, which means fulfilled by Amazon. So I buy product and I ship it to Amazon's warehouses with a label on it, and they it goes up for sale on their website. When it sells, Amazon ships it, collects the money, sends me what they receive minus their fees. So it's a pretty sweet business. If you'd like to check out what I have for sale, which is a lot, 500 items of all kinds of stuff, you can go to amazon.com/shops/Uncle Dan's Market. I'll give you that one more time. amazon.com/shops/Uncle Dan's Market. So check it out if you get a chance. I don't currently have anything on there at all for sale that's related to boats or boating, but I've got all kinds, everything from books, textbooks, DVDs, CDs, hardware stuff, Barbie dolls, toys. It's really fun. I'm having fun with it. So check it out if you get a chance. Okay, I have a newsletter that I send out almost monthly. This week there are 2 new subscribers I'd like to give a shout out to, Roz Avell and Kareem Cumberbatch. Thanks for joining the newsletter. If you would like to receive the newsletter, it's electronic. You can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. Give me your name, email address, and you're good to go. So check it out if you get a chance. I do not send out as many newsletters in the winter because there just isn't as much to talk about. But it is a fun way for me to connect with people and keep the ball rolling and all this stuff. So check it out when you get a chance. Okay, let's move on to the interview with Lin and Larry Pardey. And we're going to roll the tape. All right, take it away. Okay, it's September 5th, 2014. I am with Lin and Larry Pardey. Welcome to the podcast again.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys here. And we're at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival 2014, which looks like it'll be a grand time as always. Some really cool boats here.
Yes,
like
definitely.
Virginia 5 and some schooners and Lady Washington and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I emailed Lin and Larry a couple weeks ago and said if they'd be up for an interview. And last time we kind of did a biography, and this time I thought we'd ask some specific questions about some things you guys are really good at. And so let's jump in here with the first question. Take your time on this one. What does it take to build your own around-the-world sailboat?
A lot of time, patience.
I think it takes a real desire, and we don't recommend that people build their own round-the-world boat unless they've had some experience sailing lots of different boats. so that what they build is an appropriate choice. So we've seen so many people have this dream they're going to go off sailing and they don't even know how to sail. And then building the boat, you don't have the knowledge to make the decisions that have to be made first. So to build your own boat, you first have to have some good sailing experience. You have to have the logic of that you learn from having maintained other boats. And one of the most important things that ever happened to us is that Larry was skipper on a big charter boat by the time I met him. So when he was saying, well, what can I build that I can actually get built? He says, I can't afford to maintain anything very big. You know, he knew the maintenance time, 3.5 days a week, full-time, to maintain a 54-footer ready to charter at all times.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is because of the systems and the two heads, etc. So that's why he chose to build a 24-footer, because he knew he could do that in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
And the other thing it takes is time, because if you're building in any material at all, the average build we've seen for people building 30 to 35-foot boats is 7 years if they're working even half-time on it. We had the pleasure of Larry worked full-time on building Taliesin. There was 7,000 hours involved in building that boat, and that's a 30-footer, a real simple 30-footer.
Wow.
So to be successful in building your own boat, you need the logic, a real true assessment of the time and of the cost of it. Mm-hmm. And you need a place where you don't have to worry about being moved out. And this is a funny thing. We know of one boat that was moved 9 times before it was finished.
Really?
Remember the big schooner? So that was one thing we were very careful to make sure we had a 3.5-year lease, because we knew it would take 3.5 years to build it.
Wow.
And covered place where you can lock your tools up, not have to put everything away every day.
Yeah.
Then you got a chance of doing it in a reasonable, and not losing faith in the project.
Was Seraphin, was that the first boat you built then?
That was the first full boat that Larry built. He'd already, big boat.
That was a 24-footer?
Yeah. A 5-tonner. Let's call it a 5-tonner.
Oh, okay.
24 feet is deceptive. Remember, when you have 9-foot beam and 5-foot draft.
Oh.
She was a big 24-footer.
Yeah.
Comparative.
She's a great boat, though.
Oh, she was a great boat.
Yeah.
We'd almost like her back again, but
Really?
the owner won't give it to her. They won't even sell it to us.
Where is she at?
It's situated near the Boston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and was that a Lyle Hess design?
Same.
Yeah, Lyle has to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, lovely little boat.
So that was your first boat that you built to cruise around the world on?
No. That's
It
the other
wasn't?
thing.
Oh, okay.
We never built a boat to cruise around the world. We never set out to cruise around the world. We never told anyone we were going to cruise around the
I
world.
remember this now. You just started taking trips.
Yeah, well, and that's it. People remember just the idea of building a boat, which can be Larry still says to me, when I said to him just 2 days ago, can you think of the best time in your whole life? One thing. He says, first comes...
Yeah, always ask me the easy questions.
And he said the absolute best time was the time he spent building Taliesin. He says that was just as much pleasure as going cruising.
Oh, really?
And
That was in the place way up on the hill in California.
yeah, that was up in Bull Canyon.
Bull Canyon, right,
Yeah.
that you wrote the book
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
So if you can look at the boat building as a super pleasure, with the goal of taking it somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I was pretty lucky because Lin earned the money, and all I had to do was build the boat.
Oh.
And I could work on it full time.
And make me happy by taking me out occasionally, having a day off once a week. You have to take care of me too.
Well, I always have to make you happy. That's written down in the contract.
So, but you did build Seraphin as an ocean-going vessel. You knew she was going to be very seaworthy, and if you wanted to do an ocean crossing or whatever, you
Well,
would. Or,
we thought she would be
yeah.
seaworthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we knew that her sister ship had raced to Ensenada and sailed to La Paz and the Sea of Cortez. Mm-hmm. That was her sister ship, which was a gaff rig version. Mm-hmm. So we said, if we could sail to the Sea of Cortez, that would be the most wonderful thing in the world. and we didn't ever say we were going to cross an ocean. In fact, when we were building her, we built a cockpit that was to the original design, pretty close to the original design. And Larry said, if we ever want to take her across an ocean, we're going to have to put a bridge deck in and reduce the volume of this cockpit. But just to go down to Baja, that's fine. Well, we never did reduce the volume, and we never did put in a bridge deck, and it was never a problem.
Huh.
But maybe being concerned about the volume of the cockpit made us sail more conservatively.
The volume being too great?
Too much water.
Too much windage? Or?
No, too much water. We were worried about the amount of water that could get into the cockpit, weighing her down if ever a sea came over her stern.
Yeah, I see.
And in 47,000 miles, we only once took a sea over the stern, and that's when we were tied up at Pooltown Key in England in a riptide.
Seriously?
Seriously, remember? Never did we have a sea come over the stern.
Oh, my
Except
goodness.
that one day.
Yeah.
And Larry was bending down to take another fender out from under the lazarette.
In the pajamas,
In your
too.
pajamas, in the cockpit. And the sea came right over and went right down his pajamas.
Oh, my That woke you up, huh, Larry?
He was as bad as a wet hen. Remember?
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's great. So the moral of the story is you don't just go build a boat. You get some experience, you sail lots of boats, you do some planning.
Ideally.
Yeah.
And underestimate your ability to build the big boat. We have just seen so many broken dreams of people come back. They cruised happily on a 30-footer. They come back and they're going to build a 45-footer. Because they built that little 30-footer is not a problem. A 45-footer takes 5 times the money and time that a 30-footer does.
Does it really?
Volume.
Yeah.
Complication.
They don't just get longer; they get fatter and heavier
And deeper and
beamier.
yeah.
Oh, it's a
The
donut.
spars get bigger.
Yeah, everything gets bigger.
And you need to get help in to move things. Yeah. Larry rolled the keel on Taliesin around like it was a piece of putty. It's 3.5 tons. But you go to a 50-footer and you're talking 17 tons or 12 tons of lead.
Oh, my goodness.
This is a different game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's a little overview.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next question I've got here, I don't know if you like the way I wrote these or not, but 10 things to avoid like the plague while sailing offshore.
Schedules.
I like that one, Larry. That's at the top of the list, right?
Yes, absolutely. You hit a rock and you might stay there forever.
Those hard bits around the edges, somebody called them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of offshore rocks, too, isn't there, that are submerged a couple feet
Yeah, well,
where you wouldn't suspect it if you're not watching the charts.
obvious seamanship.
No, the charts are pretty
Charts
good.
are pretty good.
Yeah.
But, okay,
So that's one. So we got rocks.
rocks. Second
Okay.
is schedules.
Schedules.
People who take their schedules with them to sea often make decisions to put them on the rocks because they're rushing. They won't wait until morning to come into a port. Because although charts are quite accurate, when you're tired you make less good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But also things could have changed. A lot of major harbors, they're working in those harbors. They've put temporary buoys up, or they've put barricades up because there's been an oil slick. We've had
Or construction gear.
there's some construction gear, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think that if you can avoid schedules, be willing to wait until daylight to go into a strange harbor. What we always say is, we spent 7,700 hours building and then outfitting this boat. We can wait 4 hours for dawn to protect it and insure it.
Yeah.
Because we always avoid that any schedule, there's no reason we have to get in at exact times.
Yeah.
And I think don't take your landsman's values to sea is what somebody once wrote us. He wrote a letter that we used in one of our books. And your landsman's value, what he says is the way that people get a boat and get the money to go is by having landsman's value. Always using every minute to the fullest, scheduling, being on time, being driven to keep moving onward.
Mm-hmm.
And those
Whether you feel like it or not.
Whether you feel like it or not.
Yeah.
And those are the same values. And also, the landsman has to ignore all the distractions around him and focus only on this one little goal. Well, those are the same things that'll get you in trouble at sea.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be looking all around you and taking in all the information around you. You have to not be in a rush. You have to slow down and enjoy first, smell the roses, but make very calculated, unrushed decisions. So that's why the third one is to leave your landsman's values behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Move into this new endeavor like a seaman, which is to always take care of the boat by always being observant about everything around you and not trying to stick to tight schedules.
Yeah. So were you guys really good at doing that? Were you pretty diligent?
Pretty good.
Did you get better over time, or?
I think we started out better and got worse.
Oh, really?
Because what happened is when we really, the more we felt more involved we got in sailing, the better we trusted our boats. A couple of times we forgot and made schedules, made dates with people, and said we're going to sail back to New Zealand, remember, for Christmas. And everything was against the weather was just not right. We were over in Australia, and so we told everyone we'd come and have a Christmas party in New Zealand. And so when the weather forecasts just weren't right, we sat for 3 or 4 weeks and just finally said, oh, the hell with it, this is a good enough weather forecast. We end up in the middle of one of the worst storms I'd had on the coast of Australia in many years. And 2 boats that we know of went down, and we were hove to for 2.5 days in a Mixmaster.
Really?
Offshore, there's a unseasonal tropical depression formed against a ridge of high pressure.
Wow.
So we never had made schedules up to then. And it was just like, arrogance, it's called. The arrogance set in. So
Was that recently or a long time ago, or?
well, that was
Quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And it taught us, it reminded us.
Mm-hmm.
Then many years later, the people here at Wooden Boat Festival said they'd really, really like us to come up. And we were sailing in Chile at the time. We'd just come around Cape Horn, and we looked at the situation, and I said to Larry, he wanted to do it. We were headed here. We wanted to cruise the Canadian waters. And what we compromised, because we reminded ourselves, just as we got all excited and said, we've got 4 months to sail there. It's only 7,000 miles. We said, okay, we'll do it this way. We will say, yes, we're going to be at the festival, and we'll agree to do some of these seminars they wanted. But they'll agree that we will leave the boat, and they'll help us find a place to leave the boat in Hawaii or the Marquesas, and we'll fly there if we feel there's any pressure.
Mm.
So that's one time. So we accepted a bit of a schedule as long as we had lots of fallbacks on that.
So did you end up sailing here or
we had
flying?
A great voyage.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We arrived August 20th or something like that. Which
cool.
Was, little time to
Yeah.
cruise around. I think it was even before August we arrived, and it was just couldn't have been better sailing.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Right.
So that's what you avoid.
Okay. So that's 3.
Oh, that was 4. That was 4.
Oh, was that 4?
You give me 10. 10. 10 things to avoid. Avoid sailing in company all the time. This is really something I talk about. It's so easy, especially with modern radios and communications. People set up networks before they leave. They set up time schedules to talk to their friends. And their friends are so much fun. I mean, I always say that anyone who actually casts off their lines and heads out and crosses a bit of an ocean is a bit special. They're different than the norm. And you all have something in common. So it's so easy to get a social network going and make dates. Let's all meet in Acapulco, and I want to go and see the guys diving off the cliff. Let's all go there together, and let's go. So that by the time you get there, you're rushed to make sure you get there with the crew, You know, you're not going by your own schedule. You're not stopping in this little tiny nook that you found where you're all alone, because you want to be with this group and not miss out on the fun. But more so, when you get there and get involved with the group, you don't have time to meet the local people. The very thing that you went away to do is overshadowed by what you bring with you.
Mm-hmm.
So avoid cruising in company as a major part of your voyage.
Yeah.
We suggest rendezvous with your friends once every 2 months for a week, and then sail on your own so you can have your adventure.
I see. Yeah.
So that's another thing I recommend.
Okay.
Avoiding. Avoid worrying about it all too much. We did an article that's in, I think, put in the Capable Cruiser book about things that people worried about that never happened. and one of the, all of them worried that they wouldn't have enough food on board, forgetting that people everywhere in the world eat. You can always buy something to stock up on to eat while you cross an ocean.
Maybe not exactly what you like, but you can get it.
There's always food. People worried about storms. If they'd done some practicing beforehand, if their boat was nice and strong, and they accepted that they were going to be a bit uncomfortable during storms. Most people find their first few storms start building their confidence. So try not to overthink this whole affair. Try not to get every single bit of information. It's a bit of an adventure, and it's amazing how many people have survived. I mean, we always say that our boat was built by idiots for idiots, and we made it through by just slowing down and thinking always first about the seamanship and the boat and avoiding schedules. And occasionally we rendezvoused with our friends, and quite often we rendezvoused with great cruising people, but we tried to make sure that at least half of our time in any new area was spent just by ourselves so that we could meet local people, because as a twosome, people would invite us into their lives, but they wouldn't invite 4 couples into their life all at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, any more?
Oh gosh, we could go on and on. But
she can go on a whole day.
but let's move to a new question.
Okay.
I think those are the most important things.
Top 10 tips for learning to sail offshore.
Go racing. First, start with a small boat.
Okay.
I've never met anyone who learned to sail well starting on a 40-footer. Because you can't feel what the boat is. So 10 tips for learning to sail offshore. Learn to sail. An awful lot of people are going cruising because of the lifestyle, not because they love sailing. And if you learn to sail and learn to understand how a boat maneuvers, what balance means between your jib and your main, and learn the most important thing Larry taught me when he was teaching me to sail. I was in a little dinghy. I said, "What do I do if everything goes wrong?" He says, "Let go of the main sheet and head into the wind." It's amazing. All of a sudden,
That can fix a lot of problems really quick.
So
don't cleat the main sheet either.
Well, that's another thing. In a little 8-foot dinghy, you don't cleat the main sheet.
So would you consider, when you say learning a small boat, would that be a boat up to maybe 14 feet or 12 feet? Or
A small dinghy type boat.
Small dinghy, yeah.
Yeah, and I think something
smaller
like...
the better,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
If you're a kid, you're learning a course in an 8-footer.
Yeah, right.
But if you're an adult, you probably have a 12 or 14-footer, because you're a serious sailor.
Yeah,
But
right.
also because it's harder for adults to move around. I watch kids running around in 8-foot dinghies, and they don't. And they got their balance so good. But I'll tell you, a wonderful boat to learn to sail in. If you're an East Coaster, they're all over the place. The little Herreshoff, the Nat Herreshoff Design 12.5.
Oh.
That's a boat that'll teach you how to sail. And it's so forgiving. But by learning on a little boat, you really get an idea of what sailing is, and you can learn to love sailing. And if you always come from the point of view that it's about the sailing, then the discomforts you're going to have when you go cruising are minimized, because you're out there doing what you want to do, which is go sailing. So that's one of the tips for learning to sail offshore.
Okay.
The other thing is the hardest thing of all is get sea time. when we were, of course, Larry had sea time. He'd been delivering boats, and I went with him on a few. But when we were outfitting Seraphim, the minute she hit the water, we took her sailing the day after she was launched. We had to wait till morning because the party went on too late. But every 2 weeks when we were outfitting her, we would put her back together as best we could, and we would go sailing for 2 or 3 days. And
Sea trials.
Sea trials.
Was that in California? Or?
Yeah, that was in California.
Yeah.
It was sea trials, but it was also see if what we just fitted worked trials.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, every time we went sailing, it reminded us why we were doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a real tip, is learn about the boat you have.
Yeah.
And another tip is to, first time you hear there is increasing wind, small craft warning, instead of heading back for that hot butter drum, turn around and take the boat to windward and figure out how to reef the mainsail. Figure out how to get her balanced nicely. Figure out, listen to what falls out of the lockers down below. You know?
Yeah.
But you're building confidence and you're making the boat better. So that's learning to sail offshore. Is get as much practice as you can beforehand.
Yeah.
And if you are somewhat new to the game and you're starting in later ages, while you're going out there and learning in a 12 or 14 or 16 foot boat, consider one of these offshore learn to cruise trips. Especially if your partner is less confident than you are. And I don't like to advertise any particular person. I know Morgan's Child, they do it over on the East Coast, but here there's a guy, John Neal. Some people say, oh my God, $4,000 to spend 2 weeks cruising, crossing an ocean with 8 other people I don't know. It sounds like a lot of money, but they run a full classroom in which you do all of these things, and they make sure that everybody really participates. And I'm only saying them because I've met people who've done their cruise.
Interesting.
But it's a way of finding out how you'll react, but also it's a way of making your first offshore voyage without you having full responsibility and the stress of full responsibility.
Yeah. Because
we've seen a lot of people who, the first time they went on a voyage, they didn't realize how pressured they would feel. Yeah. But by going out with someone else first and getting over that, how do I do watches? I'm tired, I'm not used to this, I'm not getting enough sleep. They get over it without the pressure of feeling they're fully in charge.
Yeah.
And your first voyages across oceans were with somebody else in charge. Larry was first mate on a big schooner.
Oh.
So he got to watch the skipper handle all the responsibility.
Yeah.
And be first mate. So by the time you started delivering big boats on his own, he'd already had the experience of knowing he could cross an ocean, knowing what it involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've never had that. I've never crossed an ocean myself, so I can imagine how. I mean, I can't imagine feeling like you're a week from land.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, but the pressure that could produce if you don't feel really well equipped.
Yeah, knowing it, I think, just.
That's a good thing, because there's no rocks out there.
Yeah.
When you get near land, you got to be careful looking for rocks.
Yeah, and making your first landfalls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sailing tip for offshore, as hard as it is, and this is not just because Larry and I are Neanderthals as far as equipment, but people are trying to sell you so much equipment. And if you have to worry more about your equipment than about sailing, you're not going to enjoy your cruise, especially your first cruises. So try to keep it as simple as you can, and try to have the attitude that the only thing that really matters is the sails, the rudder, and a hull that isn't leaking, and keeping it off the rocks again. And the other stuff is just completely peripheral.
Tell them about the ABCs of cruising.
The ABCs of cruising. Keep yourself on the boat. Keep the water out of the boat. Keep the boat off the rocks.
If you do that, it'll be all right.
You'll be a successful cruiser.
That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so sailing destinations. So let's see, what others? You ask about motorless sailing?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Only if you're crazy.
Really?
If sailing is your sport,
Yeah.
then motorless sailing can be an absolute blast. The reason we went motorless in the beginning was money. Pure and simple.
Oh, really?
We built this boat. She was a month or two from when we could actually take her to the water and use her. And we were actually looking at little engines. And Larry remembered that when he got an engine in his old race boat, a Tumlaren Swedish boat, 27-footer, he said she was never quite the same again. She didn't feel the same because the bilges were dirty, is one of the things.
Yeah.
But Larry and I said, well, we've got friends who've just come back from a year in Mexico, and it cost them $2,600 for that whole year in Mexico. And we've got $5,000 in the bank, and an engine was going to cost us about $2,700 plus who knows how much more installation time.
Yeah.
So we said, let's go the way we are. Go sailing. If we desperately need it, we'll get an outboard, figure out a bracket, and we'll go away for 6 months. And then we'll come back and go to work and earn the money for an engine. But at least we'll get that cruise. And we've been dreaming about going for cruising for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go do the cruise and then come back and put an engine in. And the rest is history. We had so much fun sailing without the engine. It became a challenge.
Yeah.
And
It was a learning curve, too, for you.
great learning curve. It really was. And it's meant that sailing was always exciting because we had to think it through. It became, planning each little move together. And the boat was so clean.
More milk there.
Sure. The boat was so clean without the
Yeah.
engine, and it
And
made
it didn't
the boat
smell
bigger.
like diesel, and
Yeah.
It meant the boat was. Excuse me. Closing my little refrigerator there. It meant the boat felt like a 30-footer because of the
Yeah.
extra space we had.
Yeah.
In the end, Larry and I jokingly said it was cheap thrills. We decided to have no engine on Taliesin because we didn't enjoyed sailing Seraphin so much without it. And we said, if we had an engine, we'd probably give up cruising because we'd miss out on the fun, the excitement of figuring out how to get into an anchorage, how to get out of it. We'd also miss out on another thing.
You got to get out, too,
Yeah.
But we never went into places until we figured out how we were going to get out of them. It didn't mean that we weren't going to go in. We missed very few places because we didn't have an engine. Probably no. If somebody said you can't, nobody could sail in there, we say, well, did they do it in the old days? Well, if they used to sail workboats in, we can do it. So how did they do that? And we'd sit and we'd study the charts.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had to, like in Naisna, we waited for about 14 hours until the tide was exactly the way we wanted it. That's in South Africa.
Yeah.
And we had a smart sail in. It was narrow. It was interesting, but we had to wait until things... We've waited actually for 2 days in Plettenberg until the seas lay down. Because there'd been a southerly gale.
Yeah.
And then we sailed over to Naisna and waited until the tide turned exactly the way we wanted.
I'm just curious, what kind of a tide were you waiting for now?
We wanted to
slack
wait.
tide, or?
We wanted slack,
Yeah.
but slack with a little bit of the income.
Going in, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just moving you a little
Just
bit.
moving us a little. We didn't want it moving too fast because they get overfalls and there's a rock right in the middle.
Yeah.
That was quite exciting.
Yeah.
If we hadn't had the excitement of sailing without an engine, I think cruising would have paled after a while.
Interesting.
It just made the sailing exciting.
Yeah. That
But,
challenge
the
of
challenge,
figuring out each...
But we had a boat that was
She's
fantastic
a
without an
thrill
engine.
seeker.
I am not.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. But one of the things, it's an interesting thing. There's several people who sail without engines who, have over the last years. And we all had very similar boats. Tim and Pauline Carr sailed a 100-year-old Falmouth cutter down through the Antarctic and through the South Georgia. Amazing boat called Curlew. And it's just the forerunner to Taliesin. She's a working cutter from England. And our friend in the Carver in New Zealand. Can't think of the name. Bill Sellers. His Nimbus, the 32-foot Giles design, long keel, powerful sail rig, big sail rig, bowsprits in each case, big rudders, so that in very light winds they came about easily. So they
answer the helm in very light wind.
Yeah, that's
so you can
important.
sail into tight spots if there's very little wind.
Yeah.
And these kind of boats that Lynn's just described, ours and Sellers, were traditional boats. And they're kind of boats that working boats. So they go fishing or deliver
They did cargo boats.
cargo.
So so that's what made the sailing. Do I recommend it to other people?
Well, you have to be kind of crazy.
You have to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
It sure made
It's like
sense for us.
recommending a movie to somebody that you like and that they may hate it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay, any other ones on here, Lynn, you want to hit? Top sailing destinations?
oh gosh,
Is that a good one?
there's sailing destinations and there are land destinations. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
South Africa, Southern Africa, all of Southern Africa was unbelievable for us. But it was on land. The sailing wasn't much. In fact, it was darn difficult. But we spent 7 months on a little miniature safari, living in a little pickup truck with a canopy, actually a 4x4, in the Kalahari Desert and some of those isolated parts of Southern Africa. Experience of a lifetime. And we did. Larry wanted to do a video safari to make a video about. That gave us sort of a goal. And so he kept finding even more isolated, crazy places for us to go. And the people were fantastic, tribal people of all sorts, whites and blacks. And so Southern Africa, I'd go back in a minute. I really liked Finland. That was a sailing destination, but it also had music. More music festivals than you could shake a stick at. We loved New Zealand. That's why we're based there. Very gentle, nice sailing. What other places? Baja California? Great.
Mexico.
Mexico.
We had a great time. We've always enjoyed Mexico.
Yeah. And there it's sailing and the people. What others?
Have you been to Mexico?
I've been to Mazatlan, and to what's the town? Tijuana. Those are the only two places I've been.
That's not real Mexico.
Yeah.
No, that's tourist and border town.
Border towns.
Yeah.
Argentina for the food.
Yeah.
And the tango. Argentina and the Argentinians there.
And good meat.
Oh, the meat was fabulous. But the food in general. Even in bus stops, you got fabulous meals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason, the food in Argentina is spectacular. And the people were really nice to us. Ireland for music. Sailing can be rough, but can be darn good. A lot of islands. And just friendly people.
Yeah.
And the music. And that's really nice in Ireland. And then there's the music every night.
Yeah.
So those are some of our favorites. I think wherever we are at the time, almost there's a few places that we wouldn't go back, but it's good almost everywhere.
Every place is probably pretty unique, huh?
Every place is unique.
Yeah.
Remember living in the Lumut River, in the Dindings River in Lumut in Malaysia. I'm not wild about the heat of the tropics, but this little village where we were, we sort of got adopted into it because we settled in. That's the thing, is sometimes just stop and be. And that's why we say not have a schedule. We sailed into Lumut, headed for Singapore, and we knew we had to be headed up the China Sea in about 4 months. We had to wait for the monsoons to change, and we came into Lumut just for the night and ended up spending 2-3 months there because it was just really neat people. And
Now, where's that at, Lynn?
it's on the
Dindings River.
on the west coast of Malaysia.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was just, it just fit us.
Yeah.
It may not fit other people. It might have changed, but it fit us at the time. So to say a favorite, it's really hard.
Yeah, right.
And so other questions? Would I do it? What would I do differently?
Would you do anything differently? I don't know if that's a good question or not, but
Pretty speculative.
yeah, right.
But is there anything we'd do differently? I'd worry less about money.
Oh,
I think.
I doubt it.
That's my friend over here. Yeah. And we always
you're
seem
always
to-
worried about where your next.
whether we're going to get a job, another job, and it always seemed to. Once you're out there doing things, as long as we never were stupid, and always kept a little bit in the, like Larry said, a month's food, enough money to fly back to hospital care if ever you needed it, and he says all the rest is, it'll come. There'll be jobs for it. There'll be things to do.
Yeah. So you worked all around the world during your voyages, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all the way, but in the odd places. We kind of were picked them out beforehand
Yeah.
and did a little research,
Oh yeah.
We knew when we got to Gibraltar, there was lots of work and lots of boats there getting worked on that I could get work. And it worked out. It always has worked out. And delivery jobs don't come all. They're just kind of hot and cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sporadic.
I see. Yeah.
So
But working carpentry or varnish work,
rigging repair. We'd just go we'd go wherever there was a big charter fleet getting ready for their season. And Gibraltar was where all the boats,
sometimes the end of a race,
the end of a race.
Oh.
boats are broken.
They gotta get back home.
Yeah. Delivery jobs.
Yeah.
Or the beginning of a rally.
And you can show them your boat that says, "Here's what I built." So you can see my workmanship. And
To do that, you have to keep your boat looking really spiffy.
yeah.
Big calling card.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Anything else you'd do different?
well, this interesting last question you have here is how to live aboard a boat for an extended period and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Boats are for going places, not for just living on.
Oh.
And when you're going places with that boat, it's
Magic.
It's magic.
Mm-hmm.
You have the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
So, have your boat's your adventure machine.
Yeah.
So, living aboard a boat it's difficult. It's like living in a third-rate apartment. Especially if you live in a place where it's rainy, where you have to walk down long docks with all your groceries.
Yeah. Or go to the bathroom. Or shower.
Or shower, and have a really good shower facility on the boat that doesn't need to be cleaned up right after you showered. And that's why we had the little sit-down bathtub. You showered, and yes, as long as you hosed yourself off well, the bathtub looked clean and tidy, and it didn't have to be touched. Just put it away. But if you have to wipe down the whole toilet area just because you had a shower, just after you showered, doesn't seem very friendly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good bath facility, bathing facilities organized.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, the boat is for going places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, living at a moorage day after day, that could get tiring.
Oh, yeah. Third class, maybe fourth class.
I would say the only time Larry and I had marital tiffs, and we didn't have near the normal amount that most human beings do, it would be when we were stuck in some port waiting for someone else to do something like, pay us, or, well, that didn't happen, that we had to wait, but or a job that was coming but hadn't arrived yet. They wanted us to work on a boat, but it hadn't arrived. Or a season that didn't change. We were waiting for the season to change. Or fog to clear for 2 months. The fog fogged us in on the south of England.
Wow.
Gales or fog. And living on that boat day after day, waiting for something to change, port fever set in. And, we got a little testy, shall we say. Would you agree? So So I think those are the questions you've given me.
Well, I really appreciate you guys doing this. I know you're busy while you're here at the festival, but it's fun to hook up again. It's been a couple of years, and I wish you guys the best with all your future endeavors, and I hope you sell a lot of books. And what's your website again, if people want to...
It's LANDL Pardey. So that's Lin and Larry Pardey. But if you just type in Lin and Larry Pardey, it'll probably pop up pretty fast.
Right at the top of the charts there.
Well, our partner, who actually, we don't have a website. It's our distributor, book distributor has the website.
Yeah, okay.
And so he makes sure that people can find us easily. And it's been a great year for us. And
what's the most recent book that you wrote?
Well, the most recent book that I wrote would probably be Bull Canyon, which was a memoir I wrote about building the boat, building Taliesin.
Herb's done the...
Yeah, Herb McCormick wrote a biography of Larry and I called As Long As It's Fun, that the Wall Street Journal really raved about, and so it's really kind of neat. And we were allowed the right to check for facts, and if we felt anything in the book might hurt somebody unnecessarily, we were given that editorial right. But it's Herb's take on us, and it's a bit embarrassing at times. It's a bit funny.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the latest thing that's happened in the writing world.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's happened is I've just taken on publishing a few other people's books, because I've really enjoyed the publishing part of it.
Oh, really?
And I've just signed a contract and are working on doing a new edition of Herb Payson's Blown Away.
Oh,
because it was such a fun book, and it's not available anymore.
Oh,
and another one we're working on is Sailing with Kids, a realist's guide to life with children on board. That's 3 very nice young authors who are out cruising with their families for a couple years now, one of them for 7 years.
Wow.
So that's a good, fun project, but As Long As It's Fun is probably the most recent thing that people might enjoy reading.
Yeah, very good. So you've got books and DVDs on the website that people can purchase. Cool.
But what I think more important on the website is, for when our distributor asked us to do a website with him, he suggested we put a cruising tip up every month or 6 weeks. So there's not only cruising letters all the way back to 1999, but there's about 200 cruising tips, some of them quite extensive.
Wow.
On the website.
Yeah.
That people enjoy, everything from how do you know if your eggs are fresh, to how to rig reefing pennants more efficiently. So I think that a lot of people have said that's a nice resource.
Yeah. And you've got a newsletter, too, you can subscribe to.
Well, no, you don't. Well, you can subscribe if you want, or just click over to it. And I put a newsletter up every 6 to 8 weeks about what's happening and some thoughts. And there's some really interesting ones from our voyaging times, so they're all still up there.
Cool. Very good. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And we'll be talking again. So
thank you.
You guys take care. Thanks, Larry.
Enjoy the boat show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Lin and Larry, for taking the time to sit down and answer questions and have some fun. I wish you guys the best in all your endeavors this year. And I'm really jealous of your camper. I think that is a pretty cool land yacht you've got going there. Nice camper on the back of a truck. It's fully self-contained, has everything you need, including a bathroom and a bed and the whole 9 yards. I'd like to get something like that one of these days. Anyway, best to you guys. Thanks again for doing that. Okay, if you'd like to hook up with me, you can do so by email, woodenboatdan@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube as Wooden Boat Dan. You can check me out there. You can subscribe to my newsletter, as I mentioned before. You can leave comments on my website, hookedonwoodenboats.com, on the various blog posts. And you could also leave a voice message for me up to 90 seconds in length on my website. If you go to the home page, there's a button on the right-hand side that says Leave Voice Message. You click that. You got 90 seconds to leave a message from your computer. Well, if you're not in the wooden boat game yet, folks, it's time you get in and do something. I got lots of ideas on how you do that. You can do it by subscribing to Wooden Boat Magazine, going to your local lumber yard, lumberyard and buying some material and building something, get some books, talk to some folks, go to a festival, get on Craigslist and look for a wooden boat you can buy. Have some fun with it. Wooden boats really rock. In fact, one of these future episodes, I'm going to talk about the benefits and virtues of wooden boats as I see it, which should be kind of a fun podcast. I haven't done one myself for a while. That is, interview myself, so to speak. So I think that'll be coming up this fall sometime. Well, thanks for tuning in today, folks. Great to have you. And keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. We'll talk again next week. God bless. Wooden Boat Dan, over and out.